Welcome to the third and final video as a part of this series from Postmodern Pulpit. This is the practicum. We thought it'd be really helpful and beneficial to show you what it looks like. All of these principles that Eric has been teaching throughout the last several videos, now you're going to get to see it and you're going to get to feel it and see what it feels like to be in the room during one of these online small group or simple church gatherings via Zoom. We are just giving you an example. So in that video, it's going to get cut up a little bit. What's that they say about TV? It's just like real life, except all the boring parts are gone. Well, we're going to do the same thing and cut out all the boring parts and just give you a taste for kind of each of the components of what Eric has been teaching throughout the last couple of videos. So enjoy, and we're really excited to be here with you.
All right, so I've gathered about 5 or 6 of my friends, and we're going to go through an interactive discussion of a story of Jesus to look for ways that the example of Jesus gives us encouragement or hope. This is from a series called 7 Stories of Hope, which any believer can use to simply sit down or get on Zoom with a group of friends and discuss stories about Jesus. You don't have to prepare a lot. You don't have to have a sermon. A very easy way for believers to sit down with either other believers or people who maybe haven't been to church in a while or ever, and simply look at stories of Jesus to look for insights in our lives that encourage us and draw us into a deeper pursuit of Jesus. So today we're going to, there's a list of the 7 signs of hope, which you can take a screenshot, and feel free to use those if you want to replicate this with people. But first off, we're going to have an icebreaker for my friends here. Over the last 24 hours, what's something that's been challenging, and what's something that you're thankful for? We'll just take about 30 seconds each and check in with each other. So Luke, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so my challenging thing is we had a pretty bad night's sleep last night, so I'm a little groggy today. But that's actually related to the thing I'm thankful for. My kids had a really good night's sleep, and that doesn't happen very often. So I'm super grateful for that.
Wow, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Somebody else?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I'm transitioning to some online teaching, and the work schedule has been quite challenging to switch from classroom to online. And so, quite a lot of hurdles to jump through, walk students through. It's been tough. But on the other side, I'm thankful for 3 more weeks of school, and then we're done. So hard work for a few more weeks, and we'll be home free.
Okay, so moving on, what we're going to do is we're going to read a story, one of the 7 stories of hope. And for this type of Bible discussion, we're not looking for right and wrong answers or necessarily, what the ancient Greek means, or, this doesn't have to be a super in-depth religious discussion. It could be, but for the purposes of this group, we're just looking for insights about people, about Jesus, and lessons from the story that personally give us encouragement or hope. So we're going to read through this together. We'll take turns. And Christina, will you start us off with the first paragraph? And then we'll just go paragraph by paragraph and read this together. And also, while you do this, go ahead and click on your annotate feature. We'll model it for this video. And feel free to underline any phrases that stick out to you that are relevant towards what it shows you about people, what it shows you about Jesus, or something that catches your attention and maybe gives you encouragement or gives you hope. So go ahead and click on your annotate features, and we can interact with this as we go. So go ahead, Christina.
Luke 19. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way.
When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly.
All the people saw this and began to mutter, He has gone to be the guest of a sinner.
But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount."
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there. Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost."
Awesome. Okay, cool. So we'll go ahead and start our discussion. What do you see about people in this story? What does this story show you about people?
I was reading this and it where it says, so he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him. I just saw this picture of this like really pudgy little guy who is awkward, but he knows what he wants. You know, he's wealthy, and so in this culture, but he's like, and he wants to see Jesus, so he's going to run ahead of the crowd. He's going to climb a tree, again, awkward for this wealthy guy and whatever to be tree climbing. Short people don't climb trees well, but, you know, like, I'm not super tall, but he's like, I got this, I'm going to do this. And when people criticize him, he stands up and he's like all about it, you know, like, Lord, here, I'm going to give everything away, you know. He's like, I want this. And I don't know, his initiative there really struck me.
All right, what about Jesus? What are some things you see about Jesus in the story and what he is like?
I feel like there's this thing, like Jesus, when he's speaking in that bottom, he's speaking to Zacchaeus, but he's also speaking to everybody. And when he says, this man too is a son of Abraham, he's like speaking to all the muttering people who are like, yeah, whatever, why is Jesus even here? And he's saying, hey, I came to seek and save the lost, and this is what I'm after. This kind of heart is what I'm after. And I mean, I can't imagine what that's like for Zacchaeus to hear that and have Jesus say that in front of a whole huge crowd. Jesus is calling him out as, you know, and honoring him in front of all these people who are really irritated that Jesus gave him the time of day.
Okay, what else do you see about what Jesus is like?
That Jesus doesn't hold people's like past sins against them, you know, that he comes to this man because he sees the desire, that he wants to see and know Jesus. And so Jesus just comes to be with him, that he doesn't hold these things, and he doesn't even confront it. It's Zacchaeus who says, if I cheated anyone, I'll take care of that, you know, that Jesus isn't holding that past sin against him, but just wants to be with him and come meet his desire.
That's so good, Laura. Like, I think sometimes people think, like, I have to do all these good things in order to be good enough to have God in my life, or to be good enough for God. But in this case, like, Jesus meets him where he's at, and then out of the response of connecting with Jesus, this like generosity starts flowing out of him. And that's kind of seems like a backwards way of, you know, how sometimes people think about how we should relate to God.
Yeah, that's actually the thing that I was thinking about too. But I was thinking Jesus like has the inn for his travel costs. He doesn't have to ever pay for a hotel. He just like tells them that he's staying at their home.
Nice.
I remember that philosophy.
All right, well, let's get into our last question is, what does this story show you? How does this story encourage you or bring you hope? And I'll type the question up there.
Do you mind if I go over this question?
How does this story encourage you or bring you hope? Go ahead.
All right. Well, I guess how this story for me brings encourage and hope to me is it says to me that God did not come to save only the super rich and those who like the chief priests back then who thought they were the holiest of holies. No, God came to save everybody from the lowest of sinners to the tax collectors, essentially everybody the lowest of the low. And I know I most definitely fit that list.
For me, what encourages me or gives me hope is kind of based off one of Christina's observations, which, by the way, I love talking about stories of Jesus in interactive groups, because I always get so much more from the stories when I'm interacting and listening and sharing, and there's a dialogue taking place. It just, a really cool dynamic happens when we create interactive groups like this. But something you said, Christina, about the immediacy of, like, what seemed impossible was changed in a moment because of an encounter with Jesus. And this gives me hope in thinking that situations I feel stuck in, or don't know what to do, or I don't know how to change myself, or whatever else, like maybe it just from having a meaningful encounter with Jesus, he can change things in a moment in ways that I can't with a whole lot of work or self-effort.
Postmodern Pulpit builds and maintains beautiful church websites so you can do the ministry while we do the webistry.